Hi, welcome back. So in this video, we will learn about the Azure VM and what are the components which is required along with Azure VM to deploy Azure VM in Azure Cloud. So now as you see in this diagram, we have a Azure VM and this Azure VM cannot be deployed on its own, or it cannot be a single independent entity. So along with this VM, you need multiple things. So what exactly we need is here. So first what we need is the virtual network. So this virtual network is required, and it's kind of a private network where your VMs resides and sits into. And within this virtual network, you can have multiple subnet, and this subnet is basically is used to further subdivide your network, virtual network. Now, if you see here, for simplicity, the virtual network has a single subnet, and in this default subnet, you have a virtual machine. So a virtual machine goes along with the virtual network and the subnet within the virtual network. So if you don't create a virtual network, and if you don't create a subnet by your own, Azure will create a default virtual network in a default subnet and will place the Azure VM inside those network in the subnet. Now, along with this, we need a network security group. Now, what is the network security group? This is like a kind of a firewall. So when you want to go and connect to your Azure VM, you have to go through this network security group. As you can see here, the user is trying to connect to this Azure VM via internet. So when it tries to connect to Azure VM, he cannot or she cannot directly go and connect to Azure VM. They have to go to the network security group. So it's kind of a firewall where you have defined the inbound rules, who exactly can go in and from which IP he is coming in can go and connect to my VM. So this is what the network security group is. And then after that, you assign a public IP. You assign a public IP to the virtual machine. Now this public IP is exposed or can be used by the outside world to go and connect to VM publicly via internet. So this is what in a nutshell, when you create a VM, this all virtual network, the default subnet and your network security group and a public IP will be assigned to the VM. All these things will be assigned and will be linked to this specific VM. It will also have a disk which will have a OS, and you can also assign a data disk which can have which will be a separate disk from the OS disk, which we will learn and we will see in the lab, in the upcoming lab for the Azure VM. So hopefully this gave you a overall idea how the VM connects and how it goes with the other resources in the Azure cloud and the Azure VM. Hopefully this was useful for you guys, and this added value to you. So thanks for watching, and thanks a lot.